He didn't call for revolution, he caused one. When Charles Darwin stepped off the ship after circling the globe, he brought no manifestos, only notebooks and thousands of observations that would rewrite science. This video traces how a confused student became the author of the 19th century's most controversial idea, evolution by natural selection. Why did he keep his theory under wraps for 20 years? Who was Alfred Russel Wallace, and how did he nearly publish first? What does natural selection actually mean, and why did On the Origin of Species change the world for good? Share ideas for future videos in the comments and subscribe. New bedtime stories appear here every day.
Childhood in his father's shadow. Charles Darwin was born on February 12, 1809, in Shrewsbury, Western England, in a home steeped in books, order, and quiet prosperity. The Darwins were old name, good money, sound education. His grandfather Erasmus Darwin, doctor, poet, philosopher, wrote on plants, animals, human nature, even on species change, long before Charles formed his own views. If Erasmus dreamed in sweeping ideas, Charles's father, the physician Robert Darwin, was pure pragmatist, tall, stout, laconic, and habitually obeyed. Charles felt junior not only in age, but in sway. His diligent sisters set the standard. His mother died when he was 8, and his father, though caring, voiced sharp doubts. "You care for nothing but shooting, dogs, and catching rats. You'll disgrace yourself and the family." The words cut deep and never left him. Yet nature hooked him early. He collected shells and insects, watched birds, filled pocket notebooks. He wasn't a star at school, but he could spend hours tracking how earthworms moved and burrowed, interests few thought serious. Sent to the University of Edinburgh to study medicine, he promptly discovered he could not bear the sight of blood and fainted in his first anatomy session. He drifted toward the museum's cabinets of animals and minerals and learned taxidermy from John Edmonstone, a formerly enslaved black naturalist whose tales of South America inflamed Darwin's imagination far more than surgery lectures. Then his father steered him to Cambridge to prepare for the clergy, a respectable path for a younger son. Darwin complied to avoid conflict, but his heart belonged elsewhere. Under botanist Henslow, the famed man who knew everything, Darwin discovered rigorous collecting, systematics, and the pleasures of meticulous observation. He read natural history, chased beetles, and, gently and privately, began to doubt tidy theological claims that nature was a flawless, finished design. Vestigial organs, fossils of vanished creatures, wildly different faunas in similar climates. Facts kept piling up. Darwin was primed for the journey that would change his life and biology itself.
Aboard the Beagle. In 1831, at 21, Darwin had a bachelor's degree and no calling for the pulpit. Then Henslow's letter arrived. The Royal Navy's survey ship HMS Beagle needed a gentleman companion for Captain Robert Fitzroy, an observant, educated naturalist. Darwin wanted in. His father refused. Family friend Josiah Wedgwood interceded. Permission granted. The Beagle sailed from Plymouth on December 27, 1831. Seasick and cramped, Darwin found Fitzroy devout and disciplined, their worldviews often at odds. In Brazil's forests, Darwin wrote of a sensory symphony, light, scent, sound, set against the brutal fact of slavery, which he condemned openly. He rode across the Patagonian pampas, watched rheas and gauchos, and in Argentina unearthed the bones of a giant ground sloth, Megatherium, near modern armadillos. Small, similar in outline, Could old forms give rise to new? In Chile, on February 20th, 1835, he felt the earth heave, saw ruined towns and seashells high in the Andes, evidence that the planet changes slowly, not by one-off cataclysms alone. Charles Lyell's uniformitarian geology clicked into place. In Tierra del Fuego, civilized Fuegians, returned by Fitzroy to their homeland, soon shed English clothes and customs, shocking Darwin into realizing environment and circumstance shape people more than brief lessons do. Then came the Galapagos, volcanic, stark, yet each island hosting its own cast of life. Darwin gathered many finches with beaks shaped to different diets, though to his later regret, he didn't always note each bird's island. Still, the seed of natural selection was planted. Near Australia, he proposed how coral atolls rise as reefs build around slowly subsiding land, his own successful theory, and a first taste of explanatory confidence. By the time the Beagle returned in 1836, Darwin's crates of specimens had made him known to specialists. He was not yet famous, but he was respected, and full of questions he could no longer dismiss.
Return and the long quiet. At 27, he had no finished theory, only field notes, fossils, skins, and a mind fizzing with patterns. Experts in London unpacked his collections. Ornithologist John Gould, not Darwin, first recognized the Galapagos finches as distinct species with island-specific variation. Similar revelations followed for mollusks, corals, and fossils. Variation wasn't random noise, it seemed patterned by environment. Darwin withdrew to Down House with his new wife, Emma Wedgwood. Ill health dogged him, stomach pains, fatigue, dizziness, nausea. Whether psychosomatic or parasitic, biographers still debate. He settled into a monastic routine, morning sandwalk, experiments with seeds, worms, bees, and plants, and an ever-growing set of transmutation notebooks. Species might change over time. New forms might arise from old. Struggle, adaptation, and extinction might be rules, not exceptions. He delayed publication for two reasons. First, he knew he would collide with the creationist consensus of his church and society. Second, he wanted a mechanism that would survive scrutiny. Genes and mutations were unknown. Mendel's work had not yet entered science. So he amassed evidence. Books on geology and reefs, the Beagle narrative, and endless correspondence with pigeon fanciers, breeders, farmers, botanists, and zoologists. If humans could reshape breeds by choice, nature might do likewise without intention, slowly, relentlessly.
How the theory works. From countless observations, Darwin distilled 4 pillars. Variation. Offspring are not identical. Small differences, beak length, coloration, limb strength, abound. Hereditarity. Some of these differences pass from parents to offspring. Breeders prove this every day. Overproduction and struggle. More young are born than can survive. Food, space, predators, climate, disease, and mates impose limits. Natural selection. Individuals with traits that confer even slight advantages leave more descendants. Across generations, useful traits accumulate, useless ones fade, populations shift. He avoided teleology. Nature has no goal. Fittest means best matched to conditions, not strongest or smartest, a phrasing Herbert Spencer coined that Darwin later adopted with caveats. His examples ranged from English pigeons to Galapagos finches to plant pollination strategies. He never wrote, "Man descends from monkeys." Rather, humans and other primates share ancient common ancestors. The point was not to diminish humanity, but to place us within nature's continuous history.
Alfred Russel Wallace and the rush to print. By the late 1850s, Darwin still polished his magnum opus in private. Then, in June 1858, a letter arrived from the Malay archipelago. Alfred Russel Wallace, self-taught, cash-strapped, but brilliant and observant, had independently drafted the same core idea: natural selection, acting on heritable variation amid struggle. Darwin was devastated, yet principled. With Joseph Hooker and Charles Lyell, he arranged a joint reading of Wallace's essay and Darwin's earlier extracts at the Linnaean Society on July 1, 1858. There was no fanfare, but the idea was now public. Darwin abandoned the multi-volume treatise for a concise, persuasive book. 13 months later, in November 1859, On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection appeared. 1,250 copies sold out the first day. Uproar, fame, and misreading. Darwin shunned the spotlight and retreated from London, but the impact was immediate. Young naturalists hailed the explanatory power, others, invested in fixity of species, resisted. The loudest quarrels erupted not in labs, but in pulpits. Origin barely mentioned humans, but the implication was obvious. If all species have common ancestors, so do we. Caricatures portrayed Darwin with a simian face perched on a skull. In June 1860, at Oxford, Bishop Samuel Wilberforce needled biologist Thomas Huxley about ape ancestry. Huxley's cool retort made him Darwin's bulldog. Darwin, unwell and anxious, avoided such set pieces. Even at home there was tension. Emma's deep faith made his conclusions painful, and Darwin, gentle by nature, insisted he denied no deity, he only sought to understand processes. New editions refined arguments and added examples, while the book spread in reprints and translations. One question loomed: what about humans?
Final years and legacy. Darwin answered in 1871 with The Descent of Man and the Principle of Sexual Selection, arguing that human evolution included moral sentiments, empathy, and social instincts shaped by mate choice and group life. He followed with The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals, comparing faces, gestures, and voices across species to reveal shared biological roots. His health worsened, possibly psychosomatic, possibly a tropical infection, but he worked steadily it down, corresponding widely, mentoring younger scientists, and revising without dogmatism. He died at 73 and, honored by Britain's scientific community, was buried in Westminster Abbey near Newton. After his death, his ideas did not fade. They became foundations. The 20th century modern synthesis united natural selection with Mendelian genetics. Today, evolution anchors biology, ecology, psychology, and medicine. Darwin's enduring gift isn't only a theory, it's a way of looking. Patient, evidence first, unafraid of hard questions. He showed that grandeur can grow from small, persistent facts, that we need no supernatural shortcut to be awed by life's intricacy, and that careful attention, like the slow rhythm of nature itself, can change how humanity understands the world and itself.